I haven't watered my garden in half a year. Not once. You're probably thinking I live in a rainforest or I'm growing nothing but cacti. Wrong. I'm in the same climate you are, fighting the same summer heat, growing the same vegetables. The difference? I stopped treating water as something I add on a schedule and started treating it as something my design captures and holds. You don't have a water shortage problem. You have a design problem. Fix the design. Fix the watering slavery. 6 months without touching a hose. Let me show you how. You're dragging hoses across your yard every single evening. You're setting timers. You're checking soil moisture 3 times a day during heat waves. You're watching plants droop by afternoon, even though you watered that morning. You're paying higher water bills. You're rearranging your schedule around irrigation. You're buying soaker hoses, drip systems, timers. You're still losing plants. You're exhausted. I know because I lived that exact cycle for years before I figured out what was actually happening. Here's what conventional advice tells you. Water deeply twice a week. Water in early morning. Water at the root zone. Monitor soil moisture. But here's the reality nobody mentions. Those instructions assume your garden design is bleeding moisture as fast as you add it. You're not watering plants. You're compensating for a broken system that evaporates and wastes water faster than roots can absorb it. Think about it. You water in the morning. By afternoon, half of it's gone. Not because plants drank it, because your design let it escape. The problem isn't that you're not watering enough. The problem is your garden creates the need for constant watering in the first place. Bare soil baking under sun. Monoculture rows exposing every inch to wind. Shallow-rooted annuals with nothing mining moisture from deep layers. Compacted dirt that sheds rain as runoff. No mulch protecting the surface. No ground covers shading soil. You built a system that requires your intervention every day, then you're shocked when it demands your time. Meanwhile, prairies survive droughts with nothing but seasonal rainfall. Forests regulate their own moisture through leaf litter and layered canopies. Indigenous gardens produce food for generations using observation and plant relationships. No hoses, no timers, no daily intervention. They understood something modern gardening completely ignores. Water isn't an input you add on a schedule. It's a resource your design either captures and holds or wastes through evaporation and runoff. I can already hear your thoughts. But I need to water or everything dies. Right? Completely wrong. What you actually need is soil that acts like a sponge instead of a sieve, surface protection that blocks evaporation, and plant relationships that create shade and retain humidity. That's not theoretical. That's what I've been running for 6 months without touching a hose. Here's where it gets interesting. I'm not talking about switching to cacti. I'm not suggesting you install a $1,000 drip system. I'm showing you how to redesign your garden so it holds and regulates water without you. This works in raised beds, containers on patios, suburban yards with HOA rules. This works at any scale because the principles are based on how ecosystems actually function when humans stop interfering. But here's what most people miss. This isn't about adding more stuff. It's about removing the design flaws that create moisture loss. You don't need more water. You need soil structure that grabs and holds it. You need surface barriers that stop evaporation. You need plant communities that mine deep moisture and share it. You need design that captures every drop of rain and refuses to let it escape. Before we go further, subscribe to this channel right this second. I'm completely serious, because what I'm sharing isn't garden center marketing or theory. This is a proven system that gave me back hours every week and slashed my water costs to nearly zero. Hit that notification bell. Drop a comment telling me how much time you're wasting on watering every week. I read every comment and I want to know where you're starting from. Here's the truth conventional wisdom ignores. Water doesn't disappear because you didn't add enough. It evaporates because your soil can't hold it and your design exposes it to sun and wind. Moisture leaves through four routes: evaporation from bare soil, transpiration from stressed, shallow-rooted plants, runoff from compacted ground, and wind pulling humidity away. Fix those four leaks and you stop needing to constantly refill the system. Let's start with soil. Your soil is either a sponge or a sieve. That's it. Sponges hold 20 times their weight in water. Sieves let everything drain through. The difference is organic matter. Compost, aged manure, chop and drop mulch that breaks down in place, shredded leaves. These create structure, tiny pockets that grab water molecules and hold them against gravity. Here's the mechanism most people never see. When you add compost to your beds, you're not just feeding plants. You're engineering water storage at the microscopic level. Organic particles have irregular surfaces that trap moisture. Soil biology, bacteria, fungi, worms, creates sticky compounds that glue particles into aggregates with air spaces between them. Those spaces hold both air and water. Roots can breathe and drink. Soil stays loose enough to absorb rain instead of shedding it. 1 inch of compost mixed into the top 6 inches increases water holding capacity by 40%. 40% less watering. And it compounds over time because organic matter keeps breaking down, keeps feeding biology, keeps improving structure season after season. You're not buying a product that runs out. You're building a system that gets better. Here's the money-saving magic nobody shares. You don't need truckloads of expensive compost. You can build it in place for free. Chop and drop is the secret. Grow comfrey. Clip the leaves. Drop them on soil around other plants. Those leaves break down into nitrogen-rich organic matter exactly where you need it. Pull spent pea plants and lay them as mulch. Rake fall leaves onto beds instead of bagging them. Indigenous growers did this for generations. We forgot it because the garden industry can't sell you something you create yourself. Now let's talk about mulch as an evaporation barrier. Bare soil exposed to sun and wind loses moisture in hours. On a hot summer day, the top 2 inches of uncovered soil can dry completely between morning and afternoon. That's why you water in the evening and find wilted plants by noon. You're not adding water to plants. You're replacing what evaporated into thin air. 3 to 4 inches of mulch cuts evaporation by 70%. Let that sink in. 70%. That's the difference between watering daily and watering never. Mulch creates a thermal barrier. The surface heats up, but soil underneath stays cool and moist. It blocks wind from pulling humidity away. It shades ground, so water doesn't flash off as vapor, and as it breaks down, it adds organic matter, looping back to water holding capacity. Here's what works: wood chips, straw, shredded leaves, grass clippings mixed with leaves, comfrey leaves, cardboard topped with organic material. You want thick organic layers that suppress weeds, moderate temperature, and feed the system as they decompose. Shallow, frequent watering creates shallow roots. Deep, rare watering creates deep roots. If you water lightly every day, plants keep roots near the surface. Those roots panic during heat. No resilience. But if you build soil that holds moisture deep, roots mine down 2 feet or more, accessing reserves that don't fluctuate with daily weather. You've created a reservoir underneath your garden that refills with rain and holds for weeks. Plants tap it as needed. You do nothing. Now let's talk about plant relationships that do the watering work. You're not managing plants individually anymore. You're designing communities where each species serves the others through shade, root structure, and moisture protection. Tall plants cast shade that protects soil and shorter plants. Sprawling plants like squash create living umbrellas with massive leaves, covering square feet of ground that would otherwise bake. Vertical climbers provide afternoon shade for heat-sensitive crops. Every plant becomes infrastructure for water conservation. Plant tomatoes on a trellis. At their base, plant basil that loves the shade tomato leaves provide during peak afternoon heat. Around the basil, plant low-growing thyme as living mulch. Those herbs carpet the soil, blocking evaporation. You've created a three-layer system where each plant protects the others. No bare soil. No exposed moisture. Squash is a moisture protection champion. One mature squash plant can shade 6 to 8 square feet with its leaves. Indigenous Three Sisters gardens use squash exactly this way, not just as food, but as functional infrastructure that made corn and beans more water efficient. You're not planting a crop. You're installing a moisture management system. Living mulch means low-growing plants that spread horizontally and cover bare soil while staying low enough not to compete with main crops. White clover is the classic choice. It fixes nitrogen, spreads quickly, and stays green through dry spells without irrigation. Creeping thyme works in hot, dry areas. These function as living mulch that shades soil, blocks weeds, and eliminates evaporation. Dead mulch breaks down and needs replenishing. Living mulch replenishes itself. It grows, spreads, stays functional year after year. Deep-rooted plants function as water miners. Comfrey sends a taproot down 3 to 4 feet, pulling moisture and minerals from layers most vegetables never reach. When you chop comfrey leaves and drop them on the soil surface, you're moving deep water and nutrients up to the root zone of shallow plants. You've created a biological pump that redistributes water without effort from you. Dandelions do the same thing. Dandelion taproots crack compacted soil, pull moisture from deep layers, and when you chop them, all that stored water gets returned to the surface. You're installing biological infrastructure that mines, moves, and manages water. Here's the Three Sisters system. Corn grows tall and provides trellis structure. Beans climb the corn, fix nitrogen in soil, add fertility for the whole system. Squash sprawls at ground level, shading soil with massive leaves and blocking weeds. Each plant supports the others. Water demand plummets because soil stays shaded and protected. This is what indigenous growers understood through generations of observation. They designed plant communities where every species contributed to system stability. The garden self-regulated. You don't need acreage to use these principles. I've built Three Sisters polycultures in 4x4 raised beds. I've grown living mulch under tomatoes in containers. The scale changes, the principles don't. Here's how you actually build this. Start with one bed, one container, one corner. Pick the area that frustrates you most, the bed that dries out fastest. That's your test site. Step 1. Add 2 to 3 inches of compost and mix it into the top 6 inches. This is your foundation. Step 2. Mulch heavily. 3 to 4 inches of wood chips, straw, or shredded leaves. You've just cut moisture loss by 70%. Step 3. Introduce plant relationships. Add basil at the base of tomatoes. Put lettuce under bean trellises. Seed white clover in bare patches. Step 4. Water deeply once to saturate your system, then step back. Within 2 weeks, you'll notice you're watering half as often. Within a month, you might not be watering at all if you've had rain. That's when you expand. But I have a tiny yard. This works in a 10 by 10 space. But I have containers on a patio. I've run this in 5-gallon buckets, but my HOA won't let me use wood chip mulch. Use shredded leaves or living mulch like clover that looks tidy. Every limitation has a design answer. Year 1, focus on soil and mulch. Build structure. Block evaporation. Year 2, layer in companion plants and living mulch. Year 3, add deep-rooted miners like comfrey. By now, your watering has dropped to near zero. You'll know it's working when you forget to water for a week and nothing wilts. when you stick your finger into soil and it's moist 3 inches down, even though you haven't watered in 10 days. That's observation as a success metric. Here's the time breakdown. Conventional watering, 3 to 4 hours per week. Over 6 months, that's 70 to 100 hours. Building this system takes 6 hours up front. After that, maintenance mulch top-ups once or twice a season for an hour each. You've traded 100 hours of labor for 8 hours of design work. The money breakdown. Soaker hose systems cost $60 to $100. Timers add $30 to $50. Water bill increases. You're spending $150 to $200 per season. Compost costs $20. Mulch is free if you use leaves. Seeds for clover cost $5 to $10. You're in for $40 total. Stop intervening. Start observing. That's the mindset shift. Conventional gardening trains you to constantly tweak. But a well-designed system runs itself. Your job becomes watching how plants interact, noticing where moisture collects. You respond with small design adjustments, not daily maintenance. This works because it's built on relationships that existed before modern gardening. Forests don't get watered. Prairies survive droughts. They use deep roots, layered canopies, organic rich soil, and plant diversity. You can use the exact same logic in a raised bed, a container, a suburban yard. If this shifted how you think about garden water management, hit that like button. Subscribe so you don't miss follow-up content on specific plant combinations and mulch strategies. Drop a comment and tell me which principle you're testing first: soil building, heavy mulch, living ground covers, or companion layering. I read every comment. I haven't watered in 6 months because I stopped treating water as an input I add and started treating it as a resource my design captures and holds. You can do the same. Start with one bed. Build the soil. Mulch heavily. Layer companions. Watch the system regulate itself. Stop paying for solutions to problems your design created. Build a garden that works with water, not against it.